Today is July the 21st, 2013. We are at the Marriott Hotel near San Francisco, California, at the Integral Theory Conference organized by Meta Integral Institute. And we are here with Professor Roy Bhaskar, Director of the International Center for Critical Realism. He's a well-known, famous philosopher of the philosophy of ontology called critical realism. And we want to find out how can this philosophy be useful for to tackle today's problems, or planet-centric problems. Thank you, Professor Bhaskar.
Thank you very much, Georgia. Critical realism has a view of philosophy which I call philosophical underlaboring. So what we regard ourselves as doing is getting rid of the rubbish that lies in the way to knowledge. And much existing philosophy is rubbish and is actually an obstacle to knowledge. And we, in particular, criticize the view of modern philosophy that you can't talk about the world apart from our knowledge of the world. This is implicitly a very anthropocentric position, and has the end result of restricting what you can talk about to human beings. That's our general perspective. We don't regard philosophy as directly producing the knowledge, but getting rid of the rubbish that lies in the way to knowledge. Now, the world today is faced with enormous problems on all the planes of social being. Now, for us, there are four planes which are of crucial importance. The first consists of material transactions with nature. The second consists of social interactions between people. The third consists of the social structure. And the fourth is the plane of the stratification of the embodied personality. So on the first plane, material transactions with nature, we have enormous problems of ecology. The planet is really in crisis. Now, if you adopt an anthropocentric view, then you would tend to ignore the fate of the planet, the existence of other species, and all the conditions that must be presupposed for an adequate human existence. So that's the first thing. We have to accept that the planet is here independently of us. And then we have to go into the causality in virtue of which human beings are largely responsible for climate change that is happening today. And this is a very serious problem on that particular plane. So we can discuss some possible ways forward on that. But let's look at the other planes of social being. On the plane of social interactions between people, we have great problems of morality and politics. In many countries in the world, the distribution of income, wealth, resources, and opportunities is very unequal and is becoming more unequal. This raises a serious problem of social justice. Then on this plane, we also have problems of war, violence, and terror. If we turn to the social structure more narrowly conceived, then we have enormous economic problems. And so many people in the world are suffering as a result of economics of austerity, which is being imposed on them by international monetary authorities. This is happening in Europe, where the EU is imposing austerity on Cyprus, Greece, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and indirectly on Britain. And then finally, on the plane of the stratification of the embodied personality, we have problems ranging from addiction, alcoholism, to narcissism and various pathologies. And we're in a situation in which we get a collapse of subjectivity. Our capacity to lead a rich inner life is being threatened by the material conditions in which we are forced to live. And structural phenomena such as high unemployment are making this worse. Now, the only way forward, I think, for the social movements which are taking these issues seriously is to understand the social structures and mechanisms that are at work in the social world, which includes ourselves, and to where the social structures and mechanisms which are producing it are lying at a very deep level. What we have to do is three things. First of all, think alternatives. We must have a clear concept of an alternative to the present. And this is what I call concrete utopianism. And then secondly, we must have intellectuals informing practice and being responsive to the needs of practice. So we must have theory-practice unity in the context of deep struggles.
Is this what you call the transformational model of social activity?
Yes, it stems from it. And the idea of the transformational model of social activity is this, that while we don't create society, we do reproduce or transform it. So when you're starting action, you always have to take the social structure as a given. But in your action, you can transform it. And for the most part, change in the past has been produced as a result of unconscious action. And we need today conscious action and transformation.
Are these patterns of relations agentic?
Agentic.
I mean, when you speak of the real, you speak about relations.
Yes, yeah. Our agency is real. We really do make a difference in the world. So this is really important to understand, that we're not predetermined by physical forces or physical laws. The realm of human beings is emergent from the realm of nature, and within any social context, we as agents must take responsibility for our action individually and collectively. And the social structure will not reproduce itself without our activity. So social structure depends on us in the last instance.
Mm-hmm. I heard that you were trying to rescue, I don't know if it's the right word, the Heraclitean
yes.
legacy
Yes.
from a misunderstanding. Among all the categorical mistakes that you were trying to clarify, I think that's the most important one.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on that, please?
Yes. We are suffering in our societies today from a view which was put forward by the Greek philosopher Parmenides, who said that effectively change does not exist. Change is impossible in the real world. And Plato defended this doctrine, defended this position, because he was very frightened of an interpretation of another old Greek philosopher, Heraclitus. And Heraclitus is famous for saying you can't step into the same river twice. because everything is changing all the time. But as someone pointed out, if everything is changing, you can't even change into it once. You can't even step into it once. But this, I think, is a misinterpretation of Heraclitus, because what Heraclitus was saying is change occurs, and the way to resolve this seeming paradox is to understand that there is a structure there, a river which is flowing, even though it is different from one moment to the next. So we have to have an ontology which is capable of encompassing change, but seeing there are enduring structures. And then we get to the very important point: when you've posited an enduring structure, under what conditions can that structure be transformed?
This reminds me of a little-known Buddhist school that was suppressed for 500 years, Maha Madhyamika.
Okay.
It's not Madhyamika, it's Maha Madhyamika. These monks, they posit that everything is essentially it's empty. Everything is empty except for the essential nature within that thing, which is not empty. And if that could also be known in the Buddhist tradition and understood in the world philosophically, perhaps the Buddhist tradition would have become more Western compatible. And in a way, I think Heraclitus is recognizing the same idea.
Yes.
There's a permanence within the change.
Yes. That's right. I think, I myself believe that we have three levels of reality. There is the ordinary level, which I call the world of duality. That's a subject and object apart from each other. Then, within the world of duality, there is the world of what I call demi-reality. That is the world of illusion, of oppression. I would say the ego is an illusion. The ego in the sense of myself separate and apart from the rest of the world. Such an ego does not exist. And one of the things the Buddhist tradition has always said is we have to get rid of the ego. But there's a third level of reality, which is the world of non-duality. And I think this is a beautiful world. And I think if you go into anything deeply enough, you will find it there. There is a deep interior in everything, which you could describe as inner emptiness. But you could also describe as bliss. And I call this the cosmic envelope, because that's what you'll find there. Everything has its ground state. And if you go, it doesn't matter what the thing is, however ugly, however repressive, ultimately you will find the ground state there. And this is another tradition in Buddhism also thought of like, this is the Buddha nature in everything.
Yes. In integral theory, we speak about holons.
Yes.
Sometimes people refer to them as ontological objects, but more recently, with the post-modern IMP approach of Wilbur 5, he says, no, these are perspectives. Everything is perspective. I personally think that they're both. In a non-dual ground state, that separation between ontology and epistemology disappears. What do you think?
Well, I think it's dangerous to regard ontology and epistemology as equivalent. You start from a human experience. You start, if you like, from epistemology. That is where you are. But it can be shown in a rigorous way that where you are presupposes things which are apart from you, which are other than you, including a world which existed before humanity did exist. That is the perspective that we have to have if we're trying to understand these global crises. Now, it may be that at a deeper level, as I've been suggesting, that world also reposes on consciousness. But that is not my consciousness. That is not the human consciousness. This is supermental consciousness, which only very few, we only experience very rarely.
If the world is real, is spirit real as well?
Yes, I would say spirit is real, and spirit. Now, I want to say that on the whole, the view of spirit, the critical realism, and its spiritual form, which is the philosophy of meta-reality, is that at a very deep level, we are all spiritual beings, and we are all aware of non-dual states and other states which the spiritual traditions have reflected on. But I would say that whether we are adopting a particular religious practice or set of religious beliefs or another, we all need to understand our human spirituality. And this should make us very modest and tolerant of people of other faiths. And basically they are in touch with, they're trying to make sense of the same realities. They may call it God, and they may know it in a different name, but it will be trying to reflect the highest order values which are necessary for a unified universe.
And those higher order values are real,
Yes.
in your view?
Yes, they're absolutely real.
Okay.
But they don't guarantee that human beings will survive this crisis. They don't guarantee, they offer the possibility.
Unless we become conscious of them, perhaps?
Yes,
And start
that's one of the steps. On
aligning
the way.
ourselves
Yes,
with them.
absolutely. But you see, this spiritual talk, has to be outward looking as well as inward looking. We have to be concerned about social justice, the survival of the planet, as well as our own perfection.
Perhaps a final question.
Thanks.
Regarding the relationship between integral theory and critical realism, how could they benefit from each other?
Well, I think integral theory can benefit enormously from critical realism, because in some of Ken Wilber's more recent work, he has adopted a very neo-Kantian perspective, and you were pointing out some of the difficulties in this if you think the world is just perspectives. Of course, when we look at the world, it'll always be from a perspective, but there is the we who is looking at the world. And this is not a perspective. This is a presupposition of any perspectives. So I believe that it's really essential for the integrity of integral theory that it comes to adopt a critical realist ontology. At the same time, Ken Wilber is a very brilliant guy, and in the fields of psychology and cultural anthropology, he has made many remarkable syntheses. And I think that the so-called École model, which is quite compatible with our notion of four-planar social being, this can provide some very interesting epistemic taxonomies, which critical realism can use. And you see, critical realism doesn't give you a complete answer. It sets up necessary conditions, I think, for a complete answer, and we have to go on developing at the level of substantive investigations. And I think IT offers a huge resource that we can very gratefully use. And then, as engaged in the same enterprise with many shared values, we should work together.
That sounds wonderful and is wonderful.
Thank you, Georgie.
And I thank you very much for this interview. and hope that the conversation improves and becomes
will
even
be-
more integral and more integrative.
Yes, very good. Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you. Thank you. Lovely.
Lovely.